just sent a text to Jack to check his email. A link.
Oh, wait a minute. I want to try. I want to pull me so I don't. Okay, so I'm not bothering anybody else. Okay. Finally, I apologize for all the snafus. I got David's on his way. He's running a little late also. But okay, it's really good to be back. Rivka and I were in America for 7 weeks, and then a week in Bidud, and it feels like we've landed from another planet. So it's really nice to be back and actually to see half a face. and to speak to some people at home. I hope some others are going to make it on. I sent out the notice to a few people. So this morning, I'll try to get the word out that the tape of this, the recording of this, I hope will be available so people can see it. This week I'm doing Psalm 8 with you, and Psalm 8 is first of all a fascinating and very, very famous psalm, but it's one of the things that is so famous about it is it talks about the position of humanity in this world. And for that reason, the Vilna Gaon made this the psalm for the day for Simchat Torah. It doesn't affect Eretz Yisrael. Here in Eretz Yisrael, Shmini Atzeret had a different psalm. I can't remember what psalm it was. I recited it, but I can't remember. I apologize. But in Chutz La'aretz, in the exile, in the diaspora, this is the psalm for the day for Simchat Torah. And Rev Steinsaltz, Oliver Shalom, brought down in his commentary on Psalms that there is a custom. I didn't see this anyplace else, and I looked a number of places, that there is a custom to recite this psalm on Parshat Breshit, for the same reason that it's the psalm for Simchat Torah, because as we go through the psalm, I hope you'll agree with me that to a certain extent, this psalm is a perush on the creation of mankind. And since it's explaining that phenomenon, it is the psalm for that many people do say on, especially Chabad, I imagine, because quite often Rav Steinsaltz brings down Chabad customs that was recited yesterday. I said it yesterday because I was preparing for today. There is a custom for those people that do Yom Kippur Katan on Erev Rosh Chodesh to recite this psalm every Erev Rosh Chodesh. And there are some other customs in the Sephardic and Taimani world. Some Sephardim and Taimanim recite the psalm every night before going to bed, between Ma'ariv and Kriya Shema Alamita. So it is a popular and common psalm, and we'll see some other uses for it in just a couple of minutes. But let's begin. So the psalm begins Lamanatzeach al Hagitit Mizmor David. I don't want to belabor this point because there are other points later in the poem I want to really talk about. Nobody knows exactly what the Gitit is. It's an instrument according to most commentaries. There are people that believe that the instrument was invented or used in Kiryat Gat, but there are other people that say that the word Gitit is from the word Gat. A Gat is a wine press or an oil press, a press that produce liquid from a solid, whether it's grapes or olives, and so it's a psalm that is about the concept of pressure, and that we'll see in the poem that there is a certain amount of pressure that is alluded to in the psalm itself. But okay, so the psalm really starts in verse Bet. Verse 2. If you looked in the King James Bible, this verse 2 is verse 1 because the superscript is not counted. But okay. And it begins with Hashem Adonenu. Lord, our master, Adon Olam, Lord, our master, ma adir shimcha b'chol haaretz. How mighty, how majestic. I apologize, something happened. Okay, I hope you can hear me now. Yeah, okay, excellent. I apologize. I must be the internet here at the center. I lost connection for a moment there. And then Jack, they made you the host. So if this happens again, Jack, just continue the share. Okay, no pressure. So anyways, so this line is not only the first line, forgetting about for a moment the superscript. This line is not only the first line of the poem, it's going to be the last line of the poem. And we'll return to explain why it gets repeated in just a few minutes, or half an hour, 40 minutes or so. Okay? So we're saying how majestic is your name throughout the world. So in other words, Hashem is our master, and God's name carries a certain power. Now we can give a mystical interpretation to that. And we know that many commentaries do, that the mystical interpretation is that you can perform great deeds, perhaps magic, if you wanted to say it that way, with God's name. And in Kabbalah, that seems to be a concept. I'm not into that. I really think it's much more that it's the name, the reputation, that when you say, wow, God, it's like you can't say it without awe in your voice. And that, I think, is what the verse is talking about. So it's talking about this overarching role of Hashem in our world, and within specifically this realm with humanity. And then the end of this verse, now this second part of the opening praise of Hashem is not at the end of the poem, just here. Asher tana hodcha al shamayim, who has, now I'm going to say, okay, sorry, I reconnected. We're really having a tough day here in terms of technology. David Hawkeyes is on the way. When he gets here, everything will be solved. Okay, so again, your majesty is over the heavens. Now, so that's the first actual verse of our poem. The psalm starts with a superscript. So that begins with, wow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is powerful and mighty, and there's something about this majesty and awe of Hashem that is over the heavens. And that fits in with the beginning of the poem and will not fit in with the end of the poem, as we'll see in just a moment. Mipi olalim v'yonkim yisadet oz. Out of the mouths of babes. So this has become a beautiful expression that has been used in many vehicles of literature or entertainment throughout history. out of the mouth of babes. And we know right away that we're saying that even the children are impressed with their innocence, that they see something amazing and they react to it. In other words, we can see the wow on the face of the innocent babies. Now, there are two terms here for babies. There are Olalim and Yonkim. So Olalim really means newborns, and some people say that Olalim even means the fetuses still within the womb, which I guess is, works in poetry, if not in reality. Yonkim are children who are still nursing, suckling, and in Jewish tradition, that's until age 3. I assume that that's based upon a historic reality, that you're called a tinok, and I think I don't know how often people do this anymore. That babies will nurse till 3. I think that's today a little unusual, but in Jewish history, till the age of 3, children were called tinokot, children were called babes, suckling, nursing babies, and apparently nursing was in effect until age 3. Different world, different customs, different ways of life. But okay, so we have two, even the tiny babies who don't realize much, who perhaps only recognize their mother. They have a wow effect over nature, and how much more so the tinokot, these innocent children. And it's just so wonderful, to I don't remember with my, it was probably true with my children. With me now, I see it more with my grandchildren. When they see something, their reactions to things are so it's so breathtaking to watch their reactions to things that are going on. So we're saying here, out of the mouths of the babes, Yosadid to Oz, you have established your power. Your power is so great that it's recognized even by little children. Lema'an sorerecha lashpit oyev u'mitnakem. And this power that you have over children, or this influence that you have over children, that shuts down all of those oppressors, tzorim, those bad guys, okay? And it silences the enemy and the avenger, the bad guys in our midst. In other words, you want to prove to somebody who doesn't believe, that there is a God and that God's world is amazing and remarkable. Talk to children. Say Shema Yisrael with the kid. I remember when I used to, go to preschool, when I was teaching I was teaching in middle school, but I used to go to the preschool to blow shofar for the kids when we first came back to school. And it's like, wow, the reactions of these kids, it's like amazing. I remember one time I went into a children's minyan. I went to a children's minyan in Stamford, Connecticut when I was there to blow shofar. I was wearing, my kittel and my talit, and I had my talit over my head, and I blew shofar for them. And one of the kids asked one of the counselors, one of the madrichim for the kids' meeting, said, "Was that God?" No, well, that was my first God imitation. But the idea is that little kids, they really have, that awe that proves. Unmute. Okay, I hope you can hear me again. I'm sorry. It's this is going to be a terrible recording also. Okay, here we go. Verse Dalid, verse 4. Ki er'eh shamecha ma'aseh etzba'echa, yoreh v'kochavim asher konanto. Now, this idea of you can look in the heavens and see the glory of God is a major topic in the first half of chapter 19. We've done chapter 19 twice in this class. I love chapter 19. It's the first of the additional Psalms that we add in on Shabbat and Yom Tov. And the first half of the poem is you can see God through nature. Second half of the poem is you can see God through Torah. But here we're sort of like summarizing that idea. And again, the glory of God is Shavua Tov Shalom Aleichem. Okay. No, God forbid, David. Never with me. No, David just came in. My problem now is that sometimes I'm losing connection. So I don't know if there may be an internet issue. Okay. So that what happens is that he's saying, I behold your heavens, the work of your fingers. Now people ask, how come it's the work of the fingers and not the work of God's hand? So some, especially the mystics, say it's the work of God's fingers because there are 10 levels to heaven. So that's why it says fingers, and we can somehow, or King David, with the soul of a Navi and a poet, could see those different levels. Other people say, no. It's fingers because a hand is like more smashing. And a fingers mean it's like the delicate filigree of the heavens. It's like fine artisanship when you see it. Now, King David, of course, began life as a shepherd. And we're of course assuming that he is our poet here, our singer, and he used to see the heavens. And so the amazing, good morning, Avi. Okay, I just admitted him, but I don't see him. Okay, hey Avi, Shavua Tov. Okay, so what happens is so the fingers are making this delicate artistry of the heavens that you see at night. Yoreach, the moon, the kochavim, and the stars, asher konanta, which you have set up and established in their proper place. In other words, there is to this beauty of the heavens, there is an order, a seder. I mean, there is when you read some of the work of Johann Kepler, writing in the 17th century, he talked about the music of the spheres, that the beauty of the celestial movement is just awe-inspiring. Now, we city dwellers, we've lost this. This verse has lost a lot of its power on people that live in cities where light pollution has really ruined our view. But you go here, I'm talking for Yerushalayim, just go a couple of miles east, really just a few miles east at nighttime, and look at the stars. It just takes your breath away. And if somebody goes out there every night, it's just an amazing phenomenon. The question, of course, comes up. Night. Again, I apologize that we're having a little internet. David's trying to see if he can strengthen the signal. Okay. So the poem was clearly written at night. And then the next line, in that context, that it was written at night when humanity, before Edison, okay, think pre-Edison, before the electric light bulb, humanity at night felt very powerless. And so this next line in that context of talking about the awesomeness of the nighttime sky. Ma enosh ki tizkarena. I look up at that sky and it's like I feel so minuscule, so infinitesimal. How can this be that tizkarenu, that you think about us, you remember us? This is going back to Rosh Hashanah, right? Zichronot, Yom HaZikaron. HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays attention to us. How can that be when we are tiny enosh? Now, the term enosh, there are two interpretations. The pshat is, enosh is a poetic term. It's only seen in biblical poetry, which means the smallness of man. There is a midrashic interpretation that it's a reference to yesterday's parsha, and it means enosh, the grandson of Adam Rishon. Adam shaped Enosh, and Enosh was the person whose mistakes in terms of worshiping Hashem started Avodah Zarah. So since he started idolatry, we're saying, how can it be that we, descendants of Enosh, should be mentioned by God because we are such, chutzpahniks, that we have worshipped idols? So but the pshat is it's the smallness of humanity. Ben Adam. Now Enosh and Ben Adam in biblical poetry shows up often, that they're right next to it. What's the difference? Enosh means the shiflut, the lowliness of humanity. Ben Adam means the mortality of humanity. Because if we are born, that also means we die, that we're part of that cycle where there is the generation that's going to replace us. So Ben Adam, we are mortal man. Ki tifkedena. Now, I think that tifkedena is the most important word in the poem. First, most people say that tizkarenu and tifkedenu really work in consonants, and they both could be translated as remember, recognize, visit, take heed of, and that's fine. And we sort of use those two terms interchangeably in the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, because in Zichronot, we also have Hashem pakad et Sarah. So in other words, pakad can be viewed as keilu, as if a synonym for zechira. Now, Shimshon Raphael Hirsch doesn't agree with that, and neither do I. I think that the word pekida, pei, kuf, dalid, means not just to pay attention to, but, and this is critical to the poem, I believe, it means to give an assignment, a tafkid, a purpose, a role. In the army, everything was bipikuda, as an order. It's I'm not in order like at the restaurant, an order like in the army. You do this, do that, and that's what it means here. So let's look at the verse again. What is lowly mankind that you pay attention to them? Ben Adam, and mortal human, that you should give them assignments. Give them a role to play in this big picture. Remember, we're at night. David HaMelech, like most people, out alone at night, and people didn't go out at night. People were afraid to go out. Even in the time of Shakespeare, in Julius Caesar, in the poem, in the play Julius Caesar talks about, you can't go out at night because the vapors will get you. In other words, people were afraid to go out at night. I guess that's pre-Edison again. But so at night, what is man? We seem so tiny in the great picture that's all above us. How can God give us an assignment? How can God give us Torah. Now, a little aside before I go on with the poem. At this point, I just want to quickly mention the famous Haggadah in Masechet Shabbat, Daf Pei Chet Amud Bet.
He's gone. He's gone.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully he'll be back soon.
Thank you for telling me which psalm. I couldn't get in.
Well, and I also couldn't get in. I think OU have mucked up again.
I even re-registered. It's like
Yeah.
50 shekels.
Yeah, no, I've got to the stage where I've lost all faith in OU. I had a lot of trouble last term, and he's back again.
I feel bad, but we are back. Let me try to pick up the yeah. Let me pick up the thread of where I was. So Moshe Rabbeinu comes to heaven, and the angels say, they basically say, Manosh, what is human? What is lowly humanity? That you're thinking about it. Kadosh Baruch Hu, don't pay attention to them. They're ethos. They're nothing. They're zeros. And so eventually there's a discussion back and forth. And then the angels get even more upset when Hashem says, oh no, he's here to take the Torah down to earth. Then the angels go ballistic. The Torah, you're going to give them your most precious possession and bring it down and let these people trample upon it. And so then Moshe Rabbeinu responds that when you look at it, you see that the Torah is meant for humanity because angels don't have a Yetzer Hara. It says don't kill. The angels want to kill. Don't commit adultery. The angels have a Yetzer Hara for all of these issues. So it's meant for humanity, and somehow the angels are satisfied with that. But in other words, this pasuk has really caught the imagination of, first of all, Chazal, and later in the Moreh Nevuchim, in the Maharal, and in the Nefesh HaChaim. Thank you very much. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher hakol nהיה bidbaro. Thank you, Rivka. All use this pasuk to describe humanity and the role of humanity. And the one I feel closest to, maybe because I'm Lithuanian, is the Nefesh HaChaim, Reb Chaim Volozhin, who really talks about this pasuk as talking about, again, the role of humanity, that humans are God-like, and that brings us into the next pasuk. What is there about us that is God-like? And that's how it goes on. V'tachserehu ma'at me'elo. I don't know how to finish this word. Is it Elohim, meaning angels, or Elokim, Hashem? Big debate, big argument. Pshat is probably actually Hashem. V'kavod v'hadat atrehu. And with kavod, translation, I have an ArtScroll translation in front of me. It says soul. Soul, really? V'kavod? Soul? No, honor. Honor, and hadar is beauty. You have crowned humanity. Okay, sorry. So kavod v'hadar. Kavod is what's going on. Kavod is what's going on inside the person, and hadar is the beauty that is external and can be seen on the outside. That's the small point in our pasuk. The big point, let's go back to. What is that means that humanity is just a little less than the tradition is to say angels. The Targum and most of the traditional commentaries say that Elohim here means angels, but the pshat seems like it's like Elohim. It's like that we've gotten some divinity, and that is the point that the Nefesh HaChaim picks up on, and I think it's pshat, even though you're not going to see it in most translations. That is, I believe, the literal meaning. And he says that we are just a little bit less than HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kaviyachol. In that we are the Elohim to this world. That our role on this world is godlike. And that's what's meant here. There's an interesting midrash just before I go on, because I think the rest of the poem agrees with the pshat of the Nefesh HaChaim. But there's what does it mean? We're a little bit less than divine beings. So it says because Moshe Rabbeinu got to 49 Sharei Bina. There are 50 gates, 50 levels of understanding in the world, and humanity can only get to 49. So we're a little bit less. But then some of the Bali Musa say, yeah, there's only one step left, but it's a big step. You know, what we're missing, even though we can get 49 out of 50, the one that we're missing makes all the difference. But okay, be that as it may, that's a famous interpretation. But I think pshat, I'm sorry? Yeah. Yeah, there is a gematria, but we're not. It's a complicated one. I don't want to go with it. So what happened? No. That's fine. So what happens is, I think the rest of the poem is the pshat of Reb Chaim Volozhin, that we are the God being on this planet. And that's what it means. We're a little bit less. Like HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls everything. We get to really do things down here. In what way is that true? So the second half of the poem is very different from the first half of the poem. The first half of the poem is talking about the glory of God and the awesomeness that can't be avoided. Even little babies recognize it. The end of the poem talks about that tafkid, that role assigned to humanity. And so let's take a look at what is this that is this role. Zion, verse 7. Tamshilehu b'maseh yadecha. God gave us rulership over this world. Now, rulership, a moshel, okay, is a governor, okay? But I like the pshat that I can't remember who said it, so I apologize. They'll have to forgive me. That compares the word moshel here to Eliezer, the servant Eved Abraham, who was called Moshel Beito, who was called the steward, okay, the major domo for the ruler's house. So just like Eliezer, right, was in charge of all the stuff in Avram Avinu's household, we are in charge of all the stuff in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's household down here. So the translation here for the term for the term Moshel, I like the translation steward.
Well, you got it in the story of Yosef and his brothers, and they ask him, "Vata timshol banu." Are you going
Yes,
to?
yes. That idea is the Malbim talks about, and is going to disagree a little bit, Pessy, with what I just said. Now, at the beginning of Megillat Esther, the Malbim talks about the difference between a melech and a moshel, and he says a melech does it with the consent of the governed, and a moshel took it upon himself without their permission, and that's the way it's being used in Yosef. And but I think that memshalah can be given. When it's given, then it's stewardship. When it's taken, and without the permission of those who are ruled, then it's moshel and negative. It's a bit of a contradiction to what I just said, and I apologize. But here it's more of that first shot that's more fits in with Eliezer. By the way, it also fits in with Yosef later in the story. He's the moshel of the house of Potiphar, and then it does fit in again as a steward. In place of the ruler. So we are God's representatives in Maaseh Yadecha, that God gave us control over this. Kol shatat tachat raglav. Everything down here has been placed under our suzerain. Hi. After that brief word from our sponsor, we'll continue. We should put in commercials at least when we're off. Okay. The next two psukim, and I got to be honest, I feel bad. I didn't notice this. I saw this in Robert Alter. Robert Alter, who great translator of Tanakh. I think the best translations of Nach, best translations of Chumash, I still think is Rabbi Kaplan, all of a sudden. But for Nach, I think Dr. Alter, professor of biblical literature at Berkeley, is really terrific. But he pointed out something I should have seen myself. It starts going from different levels. Okay, so ne, alafim, kulam. Okay, so when we're now enumerating, okay, oxen are bigger than a Kia. If I can use that analogy, they're massive. An ox can weigh a ton. They just so okay. One thing, sheep are they're easy to control. Oxen are just these amazing things, but yet we control them. All of them, even the animals in the field. So we're going from the easily controlled to the difficult to control to the uncontrollable. We can't control lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! We can't. However, we are in control of them. Notice we can't tame them or in any way, but nevertheless, so we're going in a sweep. And the next pasuk is a even more beautiful, sweeping. You know, I love old movies, and there are just some scenes that were filmed by Alfred Hitchcock that he starts way off in the distance and he just zeroes in on one thing. Okay, in one movie, he zeroes all the way from a massive ballroom down to a musician whose eyes are twitching, and you know he's the bad guy. So that's what's happening. Lahavdil in our next pasuk. See, Por Shemayim, the birds of the heaven way up there. Degei Hayam, the fish of the sea. Ovir Orchot Yamim, all of those bottom dwellers in the ocean, which, you know, who go through their own pathways down there. So now it's the sweep from the sky above to the oceans below. Humanity controls it all, or in some cases pollutes it all. But it doesn't make any difference. The idea is it's clear that humanity has a great amount of control over what's going on here. Okay, when people say that humanity has nothing to do with climate control issues, it's like they must not be paying attention to what's going on around them. I mean, really, and this is so much more obvious for us than it was for David HaMelech. David HaMelech, it was the control of humanity over everything was pale compared to the way, you know, humanity today really, you know, when you go in not that I'm going, but if one goes into outer space and you look down at the dark side of the earth, I mean, a lot of it is lit up because humanity just is lighting up the world. We have a tremendous influence on this world. End pasuk, which is the first pasuk. Our control of the world has to be, number one, the beginning of the second part must be because it's a stewardship which was granted by God, and our control over stuff has to be seen in the context of Ma adir shimcha b'chol haaretz. How adir, how majestic is your name throughout the land. In other words, what we do should be for the greater glory of God. If it's not, then it's not only not going to ultimately be effective, it's going to be bad. So in our poem, in this amazing psalm, we go from the infinitesimal role of humanity as so tiny in the vast universe to stewardship, control over Olam Hazeh down here. And so we've got two sides to the coin going on, but both sides to the coin, whether humanity sees itself as tiny, it's through the amazingness of God. If humanity sees itself as having a controlling role in this corner of creation, again, it's ma'adir. It has to be in the context of the glory of God. And so it's important to see both sides. I think that David HaMelech wrote the first half of the poem at night, as I mentioned before. I think he wrote the second half of the poem during the daytime. At night, humanity seemed very small and very fragile. And in the daytime, humanity seems very powerful. And I think that that's one of the ways to see the poem. The Kotzker Rav, the Kotzker Rebbe, saw, of course, this issue of is man tiny or is man great as an issue that every human has to deal with. And I remember listening to Rav Troitsky, Olav Shalom, talk about the two issues that humanity has to deal with is ga'ava, is haughtiness, and hubris on one hand and self-esteem issues on the other. And he felt very strongly as an expert on addictions that all substance abuse, in his opinion, all substance abuse is a result of low self-esteem. And so there, in the two ends of the poem, humanity is always dealing with both issues. And the famous solution of the Kotzker to the problem was he had two pockets. And in one pocket, he had the famous pasuk from that we're going to read in a couple of weeks from Parshat Vayera, Anochi Afar ve'Efer, I'm nothing but dust and ashes. In the other pocket, he had the famous Ma'amar from the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Ha'olam nivra bishvili, the world was created for me. And so when he was feeling a little too full of himself, he'd pull out one piece of paper and that would, and it would say, hey, remember, you're nothing but, flesh and blood and dust and ashes and remember your place. And when he started to feel that he was nothing, God created the world for me and gave me stewardship, suzerainty, hegemony over this world. And that would give him what is most important to a successful human life, izun, the balance. And that's what the poem is pointing towards, and that's what we have to achieve in our lives. And just as I'm running out of time, there are only a couple of people here, but if any of you, hopefully I'll get to see all of you before too long. I actually made this up. It's backwards. I hope you can see it. So what happened was this is for a Yom Kippur sermon I gave in 5776. So what's that? That's 6 years ago. So on one side it says, this world was created for me. And on the other side it says, I am dust and ash. I didn't do two pieces of paper. I did one coin. And so you just, and I shouldn't say always, I usually keep one in my pocket, and it's just I don't even have to pull it out. I just, when I'm feeling full of myself or I'm feeling too lowly, I just, finger it. It reminds me. And it's the Kotzker's Vort, but more importantly, I think it's David HaMelech's poem. I think David HaMelech's poem is trying to achieve myself. Okay, so anyway, I'll try to get one to you. And again, nighttime is comparable to the times when we feel small and and unworthy, and the daytime is when we sometimes feel too full of ourselves. And so again, the poem gives us the izun, gives us the balance that we need in our lives. As on behalf of myself and Dave and the OU, I really apologize that this morning was so difficult. We're just getting back. Hopefully by next week, things will be back better. But I have to make a plug for next week. Next week, the OU Center, in conjunction with the area, together with the municipality of Jerusalem, are trying to have a week to celebrate Aliyah. And celebrate Olim. And when I heard this, when Sam gave me the information, Rabbi Shua gave me the information that this was going to happen next week, I decided to do Psalm 126 next week, to share Hama'alot.
It's such a shame.
Okay, with this, we're going to sign off. So please try to come next week. And if I can, let me know how I can get you a coin. My pleasure. And but we're going to do Shir HaMalot next week. And Shir HaMalot is not just a song of ascent. We're going to see it next week as the song about making ascent, making Aliyah. And it would have been wonderful if the Knesset had decided to make it the hymnon for the Medina. Okay, but it's close enough. Okay, Shavua Tov to everybody. Thanks. It's good to see everybody again.
Thank you very much.
And most importantly, see you next week and have a Chodesh Tov, a wonderful Mar Cheshvan.
Thank you very much. Thank
Call
you.
to everybody. Bye.
Thank you.